So as discussed in Module 5.2, the first American government of the Articles of Confederation did not have a chief executive. This was because they did not want an overly powerful executive, like the British monarch. Framers adopted the separation of powers discussed in Module 5.4. The federal government, under the U.S. Constitution, would be divided into three branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches. The legislative branch makes the laws. The judicial branch decides whether or not these laws are constitutional, and the executive branch executes or carries out the laws. This system was designed so that no branch could function without the cooperation of the others, and each branch could restrict the powers of the others. So it was designed to further the three C's: consultation, cooperation, and compromise. Framer James Madison's goal of setting power against power to minimize the concentration of authority in any one branch of government is outlined in the U.S. Constitution as the system of checks and balances. The system of checks and balances prevents one branch from dominating the others. For example, the president signs legislation into law, but also has the power to veto bills. To prevent abuse of the veto power by the president, however, Congress can override the president's veto by a 2/3 majority of both houses of Congress. The president has the ability to withhold approval from specific parts of appropriations bills passed by the legislature. This is known as a line item veto. And another type of veto, the pocket veto, is essentially just that. The president basically pockets the bill. He doesn't sign the legislation, and Congress adjourns within 10 days of the president having received it. Another example of the systems of checks and balances can be found in the conduct of foreign policy. Congress is able to limit the president's power as commander-in-chief of the armed forces by refusing to declare war or provide funds for the troops sent abroad. To date, the Congress has never refused a request for a declaration of war. But Congress further curtailed the president's authority in 1973 with the War Powers Resolution. This act required troops to return to the U.S. if Congress had not granted their specific approval. The president must also seek the advice and consent of the Senate before appointing members of the Supreme Court and ambassadors, and the Senate must approve the ratification of all treaties signed by the president. Congress may even remove the president from office by impeachment. To do this, both chambers of Congress must work together. The House of Representatives impeaches the president by bringing formal charges of misconduct against him or her. And the Senate tries the case in a proceeding overseen by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The president is removed from office if found guilty. This impeachment process is discussed further in Module 1 and also in Module 5.6.5. The system of checks and balances, which can be found throughout the Constitution, has been criticized, however. In some cases, the Supreme Court has blocked other branches' efforts to deal with important national issues. For example, until the Great Depression, the national government had not taken an active role in mitigating domestic crises, except for in wartime or in the cases of natural disasters. Therefore, the Supreme Court initially struck down many of President Franklin Roosevelt's efforts during his first 100 days in office, such as the creation of alphabet agencies, they were called, to mitigate the economic hardships caused by the Great Depression. More recently, President Obama's healthcare efforts enabled more Americans to have healthcare coverage in the form of the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, and it faced immediate legal challenges from some states. So far, the Supreme Court has supported this legislation, but with the appointment to the Supreme Court of justices with a more conservative ideology by President Trump, a Republican, that could change. Political ideologies are discussed in Module 4.4, and the Supreme Court is discussed in Module 2.1.1. President Trump made his healthcare issue one of the first on his agenda after his inauguration in January 2017, and he worked with House Speaker Paul Ryan, who ran against Trump in the Republican primaries. An attempt to repeal and replace Obamacare by Republicans in Congress in early 2017, during Trump's first 100 days in office, very narrowly came to a vote in Congress. It did not come to a vote on the floor because the Republicans did not have the support of a single Democrat. And this is in part because of a nonpartisan report by the Congressional Budget Office that estimated that 24 million Americans would lose health care coverage if the new bill passed. The CBO was created by Congress in 1975 to increase Congress's independence from the executive branch, and it scores the impact of proposed legislation on the budget. It's part of the expanding bureaucracy. The Republicans also lost the support of the far-right conservatives in their own party, part of what was called the Freedom Caucus. Essentially, the bill would allow too many people to retain coverage, according to the Freedom Caucus members. Political parties are discussed in Module 3. So as you see, healthcare is a contentious issue, and the system of checks and balances sometimes causes the American government to become deadlocked. Continue to review this video and also read your textbook thoroughly and answer the questions.